Geht nicht weg.
Chaim Lebracha.
How come they always came after others? They couldn't
The Rebbe used to say a niggin before, niggin after. You know, this is our
the
tapes.
Russians, because
Der Moleke Zeiten. Der alte Rebbe, nur schon fahren Maimer. Hat der Rebbe gesagt, man sagen a niggin. It wasn't always a stuff a niggin. Rabbi Yael made it. But this was the Rebbe, this is how it was.
today.
You know when the Friedrich Rebbe would sing out the Rebbe's niggin? Sagt er sich stellen. But the Friedrich Rebbe.
Stand up.
And there was a bowl in front of him, ungefüllt mit Rebbe. Friedrich Rebbe, sing out the Rebbe's niggin. There's a bowl, ungefüllt mit Rebbe. He would stand and he would cry. Kaum said gestanden. He wasn't able to stand. Next time was gesehen, the people saw it. The Rebbe did everything as a pneumistic.
Once he was trying to stand up, the tatas there.
Oh really? The Friedrich Rebbe. Friedrich Rebbe. You know, beim Friedrich Rebbe is allemaal gewoon a ledige benkel.
The tata.
And he didn't say what, but it was makpid. So given the Moshe Lishner Tversky, he lived on the next block.
Yeah.
He was much older than Friedrich Rebbe. He once came in.
Yeah, Stiebel.
He had a stiebel. And there was no place to sit. He sat down in that chair. The Rebbe didn't say anything. But you could see that till the end of the Fabringen, he was uncomfortable. I saw Mendel Morozov, Olav Shalom, at the Tzelt. Mendel Morozov went to that stuff. When they bought the house, he went. And he called up his sisters. He was a little boy. His sisters were older. And he told them, "Rachalei, ich bin in Stube and stuff." They had moved the walls. They couldn't. He was trying to get his sisters to help him. I have a video of him in the Rebbe Rashab's house, trying to remember how it was all those years before. So it's a vision of the Mises. The mikveh, the bedrooms, the way the rooms, they had moved the walls. So he was trying to remember how it was. His sisters were much older. They from Zivik Rishon, he was from Zivik Sheni. And they were Ma'arech Yom, they lived till 100. And he called them up and said, "Help me figure out what's going on." But it was hard for him.
The mikveh they found by a chance, no? They figured out
But the water was still in the boy's pellet. For some reason, the mikveh and that stuff, they don't raise the water. If you want a table, you have to do Pisha Daim with the Gleim. There's a mikveh there, but they don't make it comfortable. It was a table and that. So wait, so he said that Mendel had sailed. As in the Rebbe Chania, he was so close to the Rebbe Rashab. The Friedrich Rebbe. The Tate geworden sehr schicker. Mendel Morozov says. The Tate Rebbe Chania. Chania was Adam Gadol, was about Madrege, got very, very schicker. And there was a Fabrengen. And the Rebbe Rayatz was there. And also in Rostov, there was always a chair that sat empty. And they got up to dance. And Chania was very schicker. So he fell into that chair. And the Rebbe Rayatz said, "Chanya, nicht da, don't sit here."
What was that chair? What was
Understand? Nobody said it, the Fedish. But upon him, it was for the Rebbe to say, I don't know. But he had it in New York also. I either heard it from somebody that he walked in a mesh, no place to sit, he sat on that chair. The Rebbe didn't say anything to him because he had that cheretz. But till the Fabrengen finished and he got up, the Friedrich Rebbe was uncomfortable. But Mendel tells the story, he witnessed it. Tatik ben Zeir Shikir, he fell down on this chair, and the Rebbe had Chanya nicht sitzen da. Go sit in a different chair.
My father went to Yechid Rebbe. He said it's hard to understand, but
Yeah, he said, Yitzchak is a rois. Geworden Baruch Hashem.
My parents had no children.
How many years?
2 years, 4 years. So you have to feed him for bracha.
But did he come to the children's weddings? Did he come to the children's weddings? For sure. You know his story?
Yeah.
It's Peledish. You know his story? He didn't have children. He didn't have
I didn't have
children.
children a couple years. My parents also didn't have children.
So somebody came to the Rebbe, Dishka Lubavitcher, and asked the bracha for children. And the Rebbe told him, "We will dance at his children's weddings."
Oh, you said so he came, right? He came to
The Rebbe came to in a dream 3 times. We made up you're going to come to the wedding. So he showed up the last minute. This is Kot Nata Beinecha, Reish Bnei Yisrael. I'm zugebunden to Reish Bnei Yisrael, is Reish Bnei Yisrael.
Simpson used to interpret what the Rebbe would say. Simpson used to say over what the other guy.
Did your father learn in Lubavitch?
No, he didn't talk to us. Mendelovich, Rebbe Rifkin taught him Tanya. That's how he got a Shmak Tanya. In the 40s, he took him in the early 40s. And he got married in 46. So in the 40s, he was yeshiva. It wasn't some 70. He was the He lived in Borough Park. He learned to have that from Sir Sniffer. Because it was Williamsburg. Those days, no highway.
It was a bus.
Whatever. I don't know.
By the way, your father was probably in my mother's Kiddush parents. Mother was born.
Who's your mother?
She's Shirman Sudakevich.
Maybe.
So I'm saying she was born over there. So you say.
But life was so hard. We forget how hard it was. What is the broken window theory?
Yeah, that's Giuliani, broken windows.
That's what he called it.
Yeah.
Quality of life crime, that's how I remember. But in Avodas Hashem, it's a gewählte Kahira. Metacht, größte Sachen.
You said before about the Frierdiker Rebbe, about how great he was a writer. So I watched once, they did like a series of lectures of Chabad in a university in Israel. The guy was talking about the Rebbe. So he said it's a shame that Frierdiker Rebbe became a Rebbe because he could have been one of the greatest writers in the world. He said it's a shame he became a Rebbe.
Hebrew. That's right, the Rebbe spoke good to sich, it's Anashir. Right, it's a Yesod. Aber ein Heintig in Dor. It is a Zayni. Heintig in Dor.
You listen to him like, wow, he doesn't even like.
My best line from the Yisham is that it's Tisha B'Av, right? So they ask, okay, who's going to say Eicha?
Mashiach. I once was talking to some people, not from people. So I had to find a form to get their attention. So I spoke about Shlomo Melech. And the question that I asked was, Solomon the poet or Solomon the prophet? That was what I presented him with. At the Kashim Shirashirim or Mishlei and Kehelis, I had a friend who once told me that Kehelis is a perfect book, except for the last pasuk. It ruins. What's the last pasuk? You ever heard Kehelis? Read it. Kehelis is V'ra'isi ani. V'ra'isi ani. Any taiva you want, any way of life, chokhmah, geld, taivis, whatever you want, I tried it already. Hevel havolam omer kehelis hevel omer kehelis. It's not Baba Maises. The whole sefer, it's 12 prakim, goes through different things that people are intrigued by, and every time he says hevel havolam. And he finishes Save Davar Akel Nishma, so Lakim Yerav, so there's a lot of people say, for sure someone else added it. No way! Solomon would ruin his book with that line. It's so perfect. Kailerdik, Ona Maskan, agnostic. It's Imamish, so simple. This was what I spoke about, What makes Shlomo Melech? There was a big chochem. Or Shechina vers mit der Grene. It's the selbe Sache what du sagst. I saw in Kfar Chabad many years ago, I'm in the terrible position now where I'm a source for stories. It's schrecklich. If I remember my sources, good. I have to know where I saw every story, because now, Rabbi Baltil said, I saw it in Kfar Chabad magazine. They did an interview with a Jew, a whole interview. He was an academic, a chochem. I don't think he was from. In the tough shins, the Rebbe knew all the Chachamim of New York. The Yidden, who were smart, whatever Chachma they win, the Rebbe knew them. The Rebbe would go into the city a lot. The Rebbe used to go into Manhattan a lot. He visited JTS, he was looking for Kisvei Yad. The Rebbe knew all the smart people. By smart people, I mean Goinim, not like I'm smart. Lieberman from the JTS, Azacha mentioned. And a lot of, I have a friend who told me that there's a guy named Rickover. Rickover made the first nuclear submarine. It was a Shemesh Shabbos. And he lived in Crown Heights. A guy told me that he went to Boston and he saw the Nautilus, that's what it's called, it was on display there. There's a little plaque that reads, "This submarine could not have been built without the help and the encouragement of MS." And this guy swears it's the Rebbe. So I made the mistake of repeating it. So some guy on his computer found it, and he went through the whole ship, and he couldn't find the plaque. The Ma'aseh Temes. The guy told me he saw with his eyes. So the story that they had in Kfar Chabad was a Yid was sitting by the Rebbe a night or two before Yud Shvat. And the Rebbe says, "You know what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'm going to take this job, and you and I will never be able to talk again." The Rebbe faked Chochma, whatever Chochma it was. People used to come to 770 to talk. All kinds of Chochma. Chamal Gehet HaMaaseh. These are beautiful stories. I mean, stories are just stories, but they're still nice. A guy rolled into 770, and he wanted to talk Kiddush HaChedesh LaRambam. So you know where Meir HaHalak's closet is. Kiddush HaChedesh, before the guy could say, we took out a pencil, and he made a diagram on the wall. Whatever he put on the wall, and then they had a conversation. I heard from people that diagram stayed in the world for decades, till it was painted over. The Rebbe Poshet made a picture on the wall in that closet where
You ever made a picture in Meir HaHalak's closet?
they kept the wine.
I know that.
So on the wall, so the Rebbe Poshet made a picture, and then he had this conversation. I don't know if the story is true, but I didn't make it up. Someone else made it up. On that diagram stayed on that wall till someone didn't know who made it. It sat on the wall for years. Yorim Nachanat. So the Rebbe says to this Chacham, "I'm going to take this job." And that's it. So he says to the Rebbe, "Don't do it." What dafted us?
This is before you
Before you trot.
So the Rebbe knew whether he should take the job.
A couple of days before.
But the Rebbe didn't want to take the job later on.
Zayin, Ches,
But
Tes.
the Rebbe didn't want to take the job later on. So why is he telling somebody they'll have to?
No, not before the Fidiger passed away. Before Yud Aleph.
Aleph.
Mamash, 2 or 3 days before the Fabrengen.
So the,
I once heard a story with Shane, you question about it?
Ochem Vei.
The famous story about Rebbe by the Rebbe's bar mitzvah. The Levi Yitzchak told him something.
Right. Nobody knows what.
So, okay, but you have something on it.
So there's different girses. First of all, the Rebbe. Let's first talk facts. So I finished the story. So he told the Rebbe, "Don't do it." And the Rebbe did it. The Rebbe did it. The Koydem calls us. I will send you. You will send me your email. I have on my computer saved a PDF. In the Yiddish Heim, there was an 11-part series done by Nun Ben Yechen. Nun Ben Yechen is Nissen Gordon, called the Zibite Lubavitcher Rebbe Shlita. It started coming out in Yutes, and it continues till Chav Gimel. He interviewed the Rebbe's mother. So the stories in that collection are from the Rebbe's mother. The story is in there. So don't believe me, don't trust me. Send me an email. You know my email address? Rabotila@gmail. I'll give you my card if you want.
Yeah, I'll take your card. I'll actually. There's for me not take a card. You got a fax number there?
I don't have a fax number, but I have email or WhatsApp. And I saved it on my computer. I'll send you the whole PDF. It's 11, it's long. It's in Yiddish, it's moidendik. But you must understand that this was Nun Ben Yechanan interviewed the Rebbe's mother and wrote these essays. So that's one source of the story.
What's the story?
The bar mitzvah apparently was Thursday night through Shabbos. And the Rebbetzin was in the other room. The men were in one room, they were in another room. So first of all, if I'm not mistaken, and if I'm making a mistake, you'll look it up and you'll correct me. The Rebbe get a drosha. Get a whatever, a bar mitzvah speech. And when the Rebbe finished the drasha, hat lang weinen. Rebbe started to cry. But as er geweint, at the ganze Zimmer hat er geweint, the room Pashat fell apart. The Rebbe started crying. Bar mitzvah bacharol. The whole room was sobbing. That's the first story. The second story is that the Tata has gewollt from the Mizun. He wanted something from the Rebbe. And the Rebbe wouldn't agree. From Thursday night till Motzei Shabbos. Motzei Shabbos, the Rebbe was masking. and the mood in the house turned into simcha, I think they danced till the morning. There was a mood in the simcha. If I am not wrong, what I just told you is in Nun ben Yechanan's account. The way I read it so many years ago. I didn't read it 30 years ago. I read it 40 years ago. Because they're kind of with God, but I'll send you the PDF. You'll read it yourself. I may be off by a little detail, but that's the toich. So then Nun ben Yochanan writes, who knows was hat Gemont von Zun? Because the Rebbe's mother doesn't say. She tells the story, and then he speculates. Maybe already then they were talking about Rebbe Yisrael. That's the story that's in the Rishima. There's a shmua zwischen Chassidim, as that Gemont von dem Poshet, you say this Poshet Azach. Simple things. Poshet Yirishmaim. And it took a while, the Rebbe Tishmasen gewesen. So, what happened? I wasn't there. Do you understand? I wasn't there.
It's all speculations.
But this,
From this thing comes speculation that because I always heard that the Rebbe's father told him then that
that's what Nun ben Yochanan writes. But he writes it as a hashara. The Rebbe's mother didn't tell him. She didn't know. He writes it as a hashara, as an assumption.
What we heard is that when the Rebbe got engaged to the Rebbetzin, so the mother went to Naden. So we had doch schon kein Geld. Ich meine nicht Geld, ich meine der Rebbe.
Right.
So put it in writing. Shpritigev says, I have another aid, but I can't put it in writing. So how will we know? He says the Chassidim will know.
Right. So this story is printed twice.
Right.
Okay, so I was about to ask about that next. Okay.
I got so much when I told the story the first time publicly. So some guy tracked me down and he says I'm ruining the whole Lubavitch. The ganze Rebbe geworden neues Kodesh. I don't understand why. I heard the story of Chatchila from Yossi Kazen, Oliver Shalom, who's gone maybe 25 years. Yossi Kazen heard the story from Kozheminsky, who heard the story from Chaim Liebman on his deathbed.
Chaim Liebman is one of the witnesses that heard the story from the Rebbe.
On his deathbed, he told a story that he was in the house,
Right,
and that his mother came, and she spent a few weeks to see the house, and to cook in the kale. And then she went to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and she said to the Frierdiker Rebbe, Ich hab Rishus for my man to maskem sein auf ein Shidduch. I have permission for my husband to agree to the Shidduch, but I have to insist that you give me a dowry. So the previous Rebbe said, I have no money. So she said, I don't mean money, I mean Rebbe. And the Rebbe agreed. So she asked for it in writing. So the Rebbe said, I can't give it to you in writing. Aber Chassidim van allein verstehen. That's what I heard from Yossi Kazen. Zalman Garari has a book called Bechol Beisi Nemanu. It's really an autobiography. Offiziell hat zweite geschrieben, das all seine Meises. The story is in there.
The story goes even further.
That he was also in the house in Pei Beis. He was 10 years old. He was a Yosim. His father, he was born in Beis. Zalman was born in Beis. He passed away Tafresh Samach. He was 88 years old. His father was Nassan Garaj. They were very close. The garage was very close to the Rabbeim. His father had passed away. He was the youngest son. The Frierdiker Rebbe was raising him. He was there when the Rebbe's mother came. He remember the story? Sie kommen sich ein Tafshin Yud and the Rebbe, ich hab kein Hera. So in his biography, in his book, it says that he went into the Rebbe and he said to the Rebbe, what do we have there? I was in the house when your mother came. And you must remember, the Rebbe's Khan is sitting in New York. She's right there. You should know, it's a very Peled Kazakh. The Rebbe's Khan had a journal that she wrote in. That journal was in the Rebbe's house. You know, when she passed away, as soon as Shiva was over, the Rebbe took everything from her apartment, everything, and put it on President Street on the 3rd floor. After Gimel Tammuz, they found over there the letters that the Rebbe wrote for label. And the Rebbe used to sign his brother's name. They were mafasim, a bunch of chasimis. They had it was on the 3rd floor. So they gave it out years ago. But they also found her journal. And they printed Lahak. If you go online, Google Lahak, the Rishimas of the Rebbe's mother, you can see it. She used to write in her journal very intermittently, but it goes till Chav Gimel. She wrote from time to time. The entire year, from the time the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away, that becomes the Rebbe, there isn't a drop of ink. She was here. She saw the Shmutz, and she was completely on the Rebbe's team.
Right. But I also heard that the Rebbe came
Nicht
out.
covered.
The Rebbe came out late to the Farbrengen. It was supposed to start
He was
8:30
by his mother,
by his mother, and he went to his mother first.
right? For 50 minutes.
Right.
What did they talk about?
We don't know.
In Svare,
Yeah.
he was in Taten. I mean, the Rebbe didn't probably, I think, say, the Rebbe came almost an hour late to Farbrengen. The first Farbrengen. He was with his mother. And it was Zalman Garari's gift is he went into the Rebbe. He said to the Rebbe, he said, I was there. And but his girsa was that the Frierdiker Rebbe said, by uns avart is avart. The girsa which Chaim Liebman said was, Chassidim will understand themselves. The girsa Zalman Garari is Amirase Legaveya. The word from a tzaddik is a kinyan. I give you my word. It's not like most people give you a word. Weißt du, Mila the Nikens, the Chazal you have. Dvarim aniknim ba'amira. Has to be b'shas chedvese. Am Rebbe's avart is vart, am uns avart is avart. So he told this all to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe answered him, ich habe gehört von Schwer. It's a nice story, but I didn't hear from my father. I heard from my mother, I heard from my father, but I didn't hear it. He just said, ich habe gehört von Schwer. There's a story that I read, which is so sweet. It's a good story. My memory is not what it was. I used to have a very good memory. I forgot if I read it or if I...
Stop talking about it. Stop talking about it.
Yeah. So that brief reading it up again.
You said it before.
But there's a story that someone went over to the Rebbe and spoke to him about being a Rebbe. And the Rebbe told him that he has no idea of feeding it up. So he says to the Rebbe, it's very hard to believe that you have Neirah from the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's very hard to believe that Frierdiker Rebbe didn't tell you. So the Rebbe says, you're calling me a liar? So he says to the Rebbe, that when the Rebbe Rash was nostalgic, the Rebbe Rashab said he has no Neirah. But then it was revealed, that before Bar Mitzvah, the Rebbe Marash told him he's going to be a Rebbe. So you have a kasha. The Rebbe Rashab says he was never told. Before Bar Mitzvah he was told. So he tells this all to the Rebbe. And he says, no, is it from the Zache was man kenish verstehen. That story with the Rebbe Rashab and the Hera is for the things we can't understand. And then he says, und das eichet von the Zachen. This with the Rebbe now is also for the things. And the Rebbe cracked up. You know why? Because it was 100% true. The Rebbe sich zerlacht. So Shana Meises, a Geschmack of Meis. Der wird zerlacht.
There was a nice with Zalman that something about going to the Frierdiker getting instructions. Zalman Garari said, was noch hat Schwer gesagt? You ever heard that?
He went to the Rebbe.
No, so the Rebbe was telling Zalman Garari that he got it off from the Frierdiker Rebbe. He went to the oil and he spoke to the Frierdiker Rebbe. Zalman Garari answered him. He was like, he didn't know what to say. He's like, was noch hat gesagt?
I never heard this.
Never heard this?
No.
The story that Samach said like that you won't be the Rebbe, but
Day Revi Yeshiva Heina.
where's that from?
Sefer told us Kut Levi Yitzchak. That's from my childhood.
Was there a question?
Naftali Tzvi Gottlieb, I don't know where he got the stories from. Made a biography of Leivik. And you know when he made that biography, there was a whole chapter on the Rebbe. And the Rebbe made him take it out. A whole chapter. Stories that he heard in the name of the Rebbe's mother. Naftali Tzvi Nun Tzadok Gottlieb did not meet the Rebbe's mother, but he did research. That story is in there. Zalman Schneerson had the Kabbalah. You know what Zalman Schneerson was? Zalman Schneerson was Mullah Butman's mother's father. He was the father of Mendel, of Schoenberg Schneerson and Mrs. Karbach, Hadassah Karbach. He was a first cousin of Rebbe Leivik. He was the Rebbe, he was a generation older. He had that story in the Mishpachah.
Was Rebbe Leivik supposed to be the Rebbe? Not the Frierdiker Rebbe? The Frierdiker was supposed to be the yeshiva?
What does that mean? But what was supposed to be was finished.
No, I'm saying, was that...
People talk a lot. Nobody knows.
That's where the dirty
So the whole Mishpacha knew it. The Rebbe's grandfather knew it. The Rebbe's father knew it. There was a gekocht in them. If you were from a Baruch Shalom's Mishpacha, you told your children. My father told me, I don't know what his source was, but he heard it in his Bachar, that the Rebbe Leivik wanted to be a Rebbe after the Rebbe Rashab was nostalgic. And when the Rebbe became a Chosni, he said, ich habe nicht richtig gerechnet. I didn't count correctly. It's not from the Tzemach Tzedek. The 4 generations not from the Tzemach Tzedek. It's from the Ravash. My father told it to me, here at Yeshiva, but it's a fact that when Rabbi Levi would meet Chassidim, he would say, ich bin dem Rebbe's Bechuten, und ich bin der Vater von the next Rebbe. And they wanted to string him up. It was like really bad. The worst thing you could say. He would tell them, my son is going to be the next Rebbe. And in Russia, they didn't exactly want to hear that, you know.
That's one of the reasons they said that he went to extra slap, because he went to Ukraine. So this wouldn't be, you know, in the...
He was there from before. Rabbi Levi was there, Samachtas. The Rebbe told me, I remember he spoke. But the Tate gave him from the wichtigste Chassidim from the Rebbe Nishmasei. The Rebbe spoke about it.
Why didn't the Rebbe go ever see the Rebbe job?
So again, we know, but there's a sefer called Yemei Bereishis, which is called all the stories that could have happened. It was given right after Gimel Tammuz by life from Menashe life. He's a Chassidish young man. He was in yeshiva when I was 770. Every story is with a source. But by stories, da wissen wie you know the Markeda sein. So he has there in that story that somebody asked that of his mother, how do you have such a gerot and a kind when the Shikstem nicht has such a gifted son? And she said, reißt sich keine Melastem nicht. Now who belost him nicht? Either his father or the Rebbe Rashab or both. That's it. And there's a precedent for it. The Baal Shem Tov said he had Mesiras Nefesh that Alter Rebbe should not know him. Mm-hmm. And I heard from people that Reb Shmuel walked out of the Rebbe once, white like a ghost, in ganzem Bevulbel. So Levi said, Reb Shmuel, was geschehen? What happened? Der Rebbe hat mir jetzt gesagt, dass zufrieden und nicht gesehen, dem Rebbe nicht mehr sehen. The Rebbe just told me he's happy he never saw the Rebbe Rashab. And Reb Shmuel was a chassid Rebbe. Happy that he never saw the Rebbe Rashab.
You heard this from Label?
No. I heard from people. Weil es wohl gestellt in his kasha zum Schwer, that's what he said. It would have disturbed the Schwer. I did not hear it from Label, I heard it in Label's name. But it's a story that a lot of people tell. Molest them nicht. My father told me once, I think my father told me, somebody told me, that when they had the revolution in Tafshin Yud Zayin about the yeshiva, I don't know if you know that they found a letter from Rabbi Yael. Rabbi Yael wrote a letter to Noska Gerari. It was his friend. That whole story in Yud Zayin, and when you read that letter, you see that the Rashag was the tzaddik. The Rashag walked into the Rebbe and said, the yeshiva is the Rebbe's. I'm going to abzang zach. And the Rebbe didn't let him. But the Rebbe called in the Bachrim. And he punished them because he laid the Zeitung. So the Rebbe said to them about the Shmuel, gewinnt und Lubavitch und geht Chassidus von Rebbe Nishma Seiden, Eider ich bin geboren geworden. Like, why are you starting up with him? Gewinnt Lubavitch und Chassidus von Rebbe Nishma Eider ich bin geboren geworden. Like, leave him alone.
Did we know anything about the Rebbe not going to Tin Khatum? I just heard a story from Rabbi Edel when I was here about that. But I was curious.
But tell it.
He just said it right now that basically his father.
What are you talking about now?
About the Rebbe not going to Lubavitch or Tin Khatum. So he just said that his father asked the Rebbe when he drives by Queens and he comes in, should you go to the Earl or to the Rebbe first? What's the minhag? Like the Sigma Nagin. No, he said, was be to Lubavitch. The Rebbe said that Hakim was going to Lubavitch. And it was Tashni Beis. And he told people then that the way he heard it was, the Rebbe said Hakim was going to Lubavitch. It's a new, we're starting a new track. That's what he says the story. It was Yud Aleph Yud Beis. When he heard that, he chapped.
Kim in the back. Label growing if I bring us in yeshiva. I have a recording of it someplace. It's gewaldic because he reveals things that are very unusual. I have it someplace. The marshal, he was sitting if I bring in yeshiva, and he's Rabbi Groner is describing Yechidus. He would stand by the door. Amalek Titan, there was no one by the door.
No, it was always.
When you in the Yuds, there was a list, and you handed it was like a relay. You handed the list to the next guy. So it was a seder. You went in, and you had it less. In other words, there was nobody rushing you. You stood as long as you wanted. And I don't know at what point Chav Salam it became Label stood by the door. So Label told us that when Yechidus was over, he would walk in. And he would say to the Rebbe, Yechidus gendigt. And the Rebbe would ask him, gendigt? He would ask like several times. Nobody else is coming? No one's coming. And the Rebbe would make sure that it was over. And the Rebbe would stand up, stretch himself out, and plop back down. And then stand up a second time. Because he described it, he did it. And sit back down. I have a recording, audio recording of it. It's interesting. You ever heard such a story? It's interesting. When the Yechidus was over, there was some event. I don't know what it means, but this is what Label described. This is what Label described. But I want to tell you something else. That when he described what happened when the Rebbe became a Rebbe. Label. Donnerstag in the free Thursday morning. The Fabring was Wednesday night. The Rebbe walked into the office. And the maskiras, we had the maskiras, Yamut. Sven Chadakov, Sven Meshel Leib. I mean, they were the maskiras. Label was a young bachar.
You worked for the Rebbe.
He was a masharis of the Rebbe. Who else? Nissen Mendel. Maybe that was it. From before Tavshin Yud, from Tavshin Chesed, the Rebbe used to use it. And the Rebbe says, "Mit Hashmeichel, nu, mit dat machen a nayim blank. You have to make a new stationery, because that intermediate the Rebbe used either Merkez or Machane. When the Rebbe wrote letters, he used the stationery of Merkez or Machane. Machen a nayim blank." So somebody said to the Rebbe, I'm assuming it is a Meshel, but Label was present. Zol the Rebbe, Heisem was Lamach. The Rebbe should say what to do. So, again, I have a recording of this stuff. I'm making a mistake. If you'll bother me, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. I have to look through all my years. I have to remember what year and what time of the year, but I saved everything in the Seder Hashanim by me. I can find it. So Rebbe says, no, you make a stationery and I'll edit it. So what do? They took the Frierdiker Rebbe stationery and they changed the name. The Frierdiker Rebbe station is very grand, Grand Rebbe of Lubavitch, the whole thing. Rabbi, and the Rebbe, whatever it was. But the Rebbe doctored it, don't ask you. The Rebbe didn't even let them write the word Rabbi, just his name. And they wrote Lubavitch, from Lubavitch. So the Rebbe says I was never in Lubavitch. And the Rebbe wanted to take the word out.
Where Lubavitch out?
The word Lubavitch out. And Moshe Leib was going crazy. And they were talking to the Rebbe. I mean, I'm sure they spoke great Derech Eretz, but it bothered him. The Rebbe's going to take it. It's going to say his name, Harav, his first name, Schneerson, and his address, and that's it. So the maskana was, the Rebbe said you could write not from Lubavitch, Lubavitch.
Because there was not from Lubavitch.
But so it's, you know how the Rebbe stationery looks. It says his name, Lubavitch, and then it says the address, 770 Eastern Parkway. And in the beginning, it said business phone. Business phone. Business phone. And Moshe Leib was very bothered by this business phone. The Rebbe is a business. But the Rebbe insisted. The Rebbe insisted that it should say on the English side, business phone, for several years. Maybe Yud Beis or Yud Gimel, the Rebbe let him take off the word business. This is the story of the stationery.
Do you know anything about that? About why the Rebbe didn't go to Teichatun?
Maybe in America at that time was something official.
No, but the Rebbe was by the Rebbe's father. He could have gone to Lubavitch in the later years. I don't know. The Rebbe never went to Teichatun. Do you know anything about that?
The Rebbe never went to yeshiva b'chalal.
Right.
Yeah, Melamed.
Do you know anything
Rebbe
about that?
Lincoln.
No, I don't know anything about it, except for the part that I told you from the Sefer Yemei Bereish, Yemei Melech. Erayis Targenim Belastem Nisht. I don't know anything. I don't know. They'd have a Rishimis They came to the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe and Label came to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And they would stand behind him. Van Asiche in the Pays, which is printed. And it's in the Sikh, in the footnote, it says, Omar Laharamash, he says to two people, Sa'arachmones of Eich Bechlal, und auf dir befrat, was nicht gekannt dem Tat. It's in the Chamas, and it's in the Sikhs.
The Rebbe is writing about the Rebbe.
The Frierdiker Rebbe said it, and someone wrote a Hanocha. Omar, the Ramash, the Rebbe and his brother, Sarachmonos of Eich Bechlal, und auf dir befrat, was nicht gekannt dem Tat. They would stand by it. But there's a shemus, people write. When Label came to Rostov and Leningrad, he would fabrenk. And he would cry, and he would Label, that was his brother. And the Anash would sit there and eat him up his words. The Rebbe never opened his mouth. Never said a word. Unless he had a direct Eirah.
In whose presence?
B'chlal. He just didn't speak. Finished. He was a phantom. There's an Igris Kaddish from the Frierdiker Rebbe to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin when they were in France, maybe 37 or 38. It's like a Valdike brief. These letters are printed, anybody can read them. There's a volume of letters that came out about 15 years ago. The Americans did a few things because of another book that was made. They commissioned Telushkin to make the book, and they also mefarsim the Igris Kaddish, because someone was saying an Alila, and the Rebbe had bechalket kashachet ben the Frierdiker Rebbe, and given a Rebbe because he failed as an engineer. So they felt that they have to be. So mefarsim this whole volume, 300 letters, personal correspondence between Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe, back and forth. And it's not even all the letters, because the letters are about Sfarim and about money. Some of them are very boring. But it's a whole krach. The krach is gewaldig. There's things in that krach that should never have seen the light of day.
You know what I saw?
They shouldn't have?
Never.
Why? Because it's personal?
Very personal.
You know what I
See
saw
those
in the
words.
past?
It's so beautiful. But we need the B'daf Farsim. It's gefährlich. But 1 second. So there's a letter where the Frierdiker Rebbe writes to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin that I met a man whose name is Kach V'Kach. And he's a very interesting person. Thinks very highly of himself. Loves to talk. But you could get good things out of him. And I told him about you. And then the Rebbe writes, he lives in Paris. I want you to go to see him. And I want you to talk to him. But I want you to...
The Rebbe is writing this to
The Frierdiker Rebbe is writing to his children.
His children. Go to his
And then the Rebbe writes, Wie viel de Schwier Eier schweigen? Von Eier schweigen geht gar nicht da raus. He's talking to the two of them. When he wrote in Yiddish, he's talking to both of them. When he wrote in Hebrew, he's talking only to the Rebbe. How long are you going to... Nobody... Talk! Talk! Meet the guy. Talk! Red, verbreng. You were going to say something.
Over there, the Frierdiker Rebbe gives them brachos to have kids.
Yeah.
On and on.
It
And
stops at a
stops
certain point.
And never.
Right.
Like, it was almost a bunch of letters, brachos.
But it's very quick. It stops quite early.
It stops very early and it stops and it doesn't.
Yeah. One of the interesting things in the Krach is that the Frierdiker Rebbe is writing them letters. Like a father. They're so warm. And he says, I want you to write me a letter every day. Bala Galyena, long letters. I want you to tell me everything is going on in your life. And they don't do it. So I will, a few weeks later, weiter abrief. HaMechtovim Bala Galyenis Rab Madayin Le Gebalti Ukutamanish Adayin Le Nichtavim. I didn't get him, he probably didn't write him. This goes on for maybe a year. 6 months for sure.
And why didn't they write?
And at some point, the Rebbe writes back to the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Rebbe wants from brief. And he writes, there's different kinds of people. Some people see everything going on around them. And other people called Baalei Ha'iyun. They only see the thing that they're involved with. Eneni oimish ez emeile. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but this is my nature. My life's boring. You don't want me to tell you what I ate for breakfast. I don't see anything what I'm doing. My life is boring. So I have to tell. So for a while, the Frierdiker Rebbe stops. When you read the Igris the first time, you can't believe that they're ignoring the Rebbe. Mela the Rebbe, but the Rebbetzin? Your father asks you to write a letter, you can't write him a letter?
Like, why did the Rebbe tonight?
Of course, nobody knows. My Hergish is. And I think it's a good Hergish. The Frierdiker Rebbe wrote to them like a father. They answered him like Chassidim. The Rebbe and the Rebbetzin did not treat the Frierdiker Rebbe like a father. Like a chassid.
Even the Rebbetzin, that's a thing.
Yeah, both of them. She didn't write.
What was that before they got married?
No, after the
After.
Chassid.
She was in France.
After the Chassid. They were first in Germany.
And it became like
What became, I don't know. But the fact is, the Rebbe is writing to them so, the Atate. When they finished, they push it, don't answer. And at some point he just stops asking. I think it's, to be a kind von a Rebbe, or a chassid, it's one of the greatest, Nisias Ofrim. There's a beautiful, beautiful exchange. I think it's Tzaddik Beis. Where the Rebbe wrote to his father, and to the Frierdiker Rebbe, about the Inyan of Shminis Shebe Shminis. The Rebbe figured out that he's a Talmud Chacham, he figured out. Talmud Shminis Shebe Shminis. So he asked his father, what does Shminis Shebe Shminis mean? The Gemara says, Kol Talmud Chacham, She'ein B'Shminis Shebe Shminis, in Talmud Chacham. So the Rebbe's father wrote him a whole Megillah, up in Kabbalah. And he wrote to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe answers, B'negeya, das du schreibst, in Hebrew. Kisheni pogish nedaber ponim al ponim. When we meet, we'll talk face to face. I'm not writing this down. Kisheni pogish nedaber. We have this a few times. You could see the kesher, the connection.
Did Rebbe go to university? Is it? I once heard that the Frierdiker was involved. Is that true?
So I heard a lot of things from a lot of people. And a lot of people have Kleber's documents. I don't know what the facts are, but it looks like the Frierdiker Rebbe Lechatchila didn't think it was such a good idea. When he came to America and he saw what's going on here, he changed completely. Somebody showed me, the Frierdiker Rebbe used to write every day a letter to the Rebbetzin in Yiddish. I don't know why they never printed Nigris. They never printed. The Beis Mashiach printed them all. Because they're available if you got Beis Mashiachs. But they were never printed Nigris Yiddish. Every day he wrote the Rebbe a letter in Yiddish. It was his human, basically. And dort von Avort, the Frierdiker Rebbe is describing what's going on in America. And he writes to the Rebbetzin, Unser Mendel, mit sein Wissenschaft, wird sie einnehmen. Unser Mendel. Whatever word, I don't know the word is einnehmen. Unser Mendel, he writes to the Rebbe, his wife. Unser Mendel mit seiner Wissenschaft. So I heard from people that after the Rebbe was in America, his yachas to the Rebbe is